Hey, welcome back, Casibang's crew. We are in Unit 7. We are now going to start the personality part of this unit. And there are a lot of different things to learn in this unit, quite a lot of content, but we are going to pull back on our knowledge of all of the perspectives or the approaches to psychology that we learned way back in the beginning of the school year. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper into how each of those perspectives thinks that our personality develops. So the first one we're going to start with is the psychoanalytical approach. So remember, this was developed by Sigmund Freud. And psychoanalysis is both an approach to therapy and a theory of personality. So we are going to see psychoanalytical approach again in the next unit as well. And we already remember, hopefully we remember, that Freud emphasized unconscious motivation as the main cause of behavior. Our behavior is caused by things that are affecting us in our unconscious mind. So here we go. Here's a lovely picture of Freud. So Freud's theory of personality attributes our thoughts to unconscious motives and conflicts. And he developed specific techniques to treat psychological disorders by trying to discover and expose those underlying unconscious thoughts and tensions. So according to Freud, the unconscious is our reservoir of mostly unacceptable thoughts, wishes, feelings, and memories. So things that we don't really want to think about in our conscious mind because we find them to be icky in one sense or another. The contemporary view, because psychoanalysis is still around, and even though we really, for the most part, are like, wow, Freud, you were kind of a weird dude, there is still psychoanalytical therapy that is around. So the contemporary viewpoint is that our unconscious is just a place where information is processed that we are just not completely aware of. So they still believe in the unconscious. It's just not that deep, dark, dirty secret that Freud thinks it is. So Freud believed or developed this map of the mind, and it is meant to look like an iceberg. Okay, so the iceberg shows many different things. So we're going to start on the right-hand side of the iceberg here first. So what's visible, what's out of the water, is your conscious. So this is information that is in your immediate awareness. Okay, so information we can quickly draw on. And then this part that's just under the surface of the water. So you can see it, but it's a little murky. Okay. This is information which can easily be made conscious. So if we really focus, we can bring it into our conscious. And then we have the deep, deep, dark part of it. And you notice it's very dark. It's very large. The majority of the iceberg is unseen. Okay, and Freud felt that the majority of what was going on in our brains couldn't be seen by us or by anyone else. Okay, so this is our unconscious, really deep, dark. Okay, and these are our thoughts, feelings, urges, and other information that is difficult to bring to conscious awareness. Okay, we are not readily aware of it. In just a second, I'm going to go through the id, ego, and superego with you as well, and I'll kind of flip back to this image for you. Freud also had stages of development. Remember last unit when we went through Erikson's stages and Piaget's stages and Kohlberg's stages? Well, Freud had his own stages of development as well. And they are called the psychosexual stages of development. So remember, we've said Freud is kind of a weird guy. He was very focused on the deep, dark, dirty secrets, things that were hidden, and he really felt like everything had to do with either aggression or sex. Right? He was very focused on aggression or sex. So his psychosexual stages of development, which are mostly debunked now. Well, not a lot of people really believe in this, but it is the history of psychology, so it is something that we do still need to talk about and you guys do still need to learn about. All right, so his first stage is the oral stage, this stage here. So he said 0 to 2 years old. And as the infant, you are achieving gratification through oral activities like eating, sucking your thumb, babbling. Okay, you're just learning how to talk. So your gratification, your enjoyment was coming from these oral activities. And Freud said that if you did not successfully go through this stage, then you could be stuck in this stage, or you would be what he called fixated in the stage. So if you were fixated in this stage, then he said if you were an adult that talked a lot, or you were an adult that smoked cigarettes or bit your nails, then he would say that you were fixated in the oral stage, that somehow you never achieved a positive result from that particular stage. The second stage was the anal stage, and this is 2 to 3 years old, and it all has to do with potty training, all about potty training. So the child learns to respond to some of the demands of society, such as bowel and bladder control. So again, if you successfully achieve your potty training, then you're good. You go through life no problem. If you are, for some reason, if something negative happened during this, then you could be exhibiting some different personality types. One personality type, he said, was anal retentive. You may have heard people call other people anal retentive, like, oh my God, they're so anal retentive. So that really means that they are super neat and orderly and sort of obsessed with everything being in the right place and everything being really super clean and everything being the way that it's supposed to be. And Freud would say that while you were going through your potty training time, your parents or your caregiver, caused you way too much anxiety about learning, bowel control. And therefore it caused your personality to be really sort of focused on everything being neat and orderly and clean and in control. If you, it took you a really long time to potty train and to control your bowels, Freud might say that your personality is impacted and you would be what he termed anal expulsive. And that's the person who's super carefree, super happy-go-lucky, super messy, not organized, lives in a pigsty. Like, he would say that that person is anal expulsive and didn't successfully positively go through the anal stage. The third stage is the phallic stage from about 3 to 7 years old. Child learns that there is a difference between males and females and becomes aware of sexuality. And not as in sexuality in like gross talking about sex, but that there are gender differences. So the image here is like the little boy watching his father shave. So at this stage, you realize that there's a difference between mom and dad, and you realize that there are physical differences as well, but that there are different sort of gender habits, and they start to focus or spend their time more with that same gendered parent. This is the stage where Freud talks about the Oedipus complex. So you guys may have heard of this if you have in AP Lit. So the Oedipus complex is when the boy falls in love with his mother and finds his father to be the enemy. So, he has feelings of like wanting to kill his father, it's an old Greek story on Oedipus. Again, very, very weird. So Oedipus complex is when the boy falls in love with his mom, and then there's an Electra complex where the girl falls in love with dad and wants to do away with mom. So again, very, very weird stuff, really stuff that's not believed anymore, but it is part of our history of psychology. The fourth stage, latency, from about 7 to 11 years old. And this latency just means that there's nothing really happening. Okay. You're just kind of going on. They're doing their cognitive thing. There's not really much happening. And then the last stage is the genital stage. And this is from age 11, around puberty, to adulthood. So this is where the adolescent shakes off old dependencies and learns to deal maturely with the opposite sex. All right, so in this chart here, I'll kind of let you take a look at this chart. It has a lot of information. So the focus of pleasure, focus of conflict, and then difficulties that can affect you later on in life, like I talked about. All right, so I love this image. This is an image that someone drew of the id, the ego, and the superego. And this is the third and final aspect of Freud's development of personality. So he said that we each have both of these three types of personalities in our bodies. I'm going to describe them each for you. So the id is our instinctual drive. They are with us at birth. So these are things like our libido. Okay, this is the instinct that for sexual motivation. And then the pleasure principle. So the principle that the id functions. So this is immediate satisfaction of needs without the regards of consequences. So our id is all about getting what I want when I want it. Doesn't matter who it's going to offend. Doesn't matter what's going on. If it's going to give me pleasure, I am going to do it right then and there. Okay, that is the id. The ego is the personality that develops out of a need for reality, okay? The conscious, rational, and logical side of our personality. It's called the executive, okay? As in the executive that controls everything. So it is the mediator between the id and the superego, so that's why we usually see it as the middle head, especially in that drawing. And it relies on the reality principle. So it is the satisfaction of the demands of the id only when negative results won't happen. So it mediates between the id and the superego and making decisions based on what's best for the person. All right, and then the superego is what we term the ego ideal. So the superego is our most moral side of our personality. It contains the conscious, okay, so produces pride or guilt depending on how well our behavior matches or doesn't match that ego ideal. So that most moral part of our mind. So here's that picture again. Whoops, too far back. So here's that picture again. So it kind of looks, like the monster, just like devilish almost, okay? Ego has to mediate between, and the superego has like this little halo on top of it because it's like that angel. It's going to make all the best moral decisions. Now let's go back and look at the, whoops, went too far. We're going to look at the iceberg. So here is the ego that's above the water. This is what everyone can see, okay? Rational, planful, mediating. The superego just below the surface, okay? So moralistic, judgmental, perfectionist. And then the id is this deep, deep dark, okay? Deep, deep dark section, irrational, illogical, impulsive part of your personality, okay? So three major things, the iceberg metaphor, the id, the ego, and the superego, and then the psychosexual stages of development. Three very important parts of Freud's ideas on personality development. All right, we will play around with these a little bit more in class tomorrow. Bring your questions, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.